get started now. Luca, are you ready for me?
Yes.
That was a fast minute.
Take your time.
Mm-hmm.
Your house.
Yeah, thanks. All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming. My name is J.J. Hawley. I serve as President and CEO of the Woodlands Area Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of the Chamber, we would like to welcome you to our Township Candidate Forum. We have these every year. We have 3 seats that are up for election on the, what is this, an odd year or an even year?
Odd.
This is 2017. That's an odd year. Okay, this is an odd year. And then next year there are 4 seats up. So we will probably have another candidate forum next year for the 4 seats that come up. So I'd like to recognize Mr. Stuart Lapp, who serves on our board with Stibbs & Co. He's our Vice President of Government Affairs. So Stuart, thank you for being here. I'd also like to mention our Business Advocacy Council. That is the group of the Chamber that puts events like this on. We have forums, we have talks with our elected officials, and the purpose of that is to give our members a chance to have access to their elected officials and let them hear our concerns and our thoughts on important issues to the business community. Next, I'd like to introduce Ms. Amy Lecoq, who's going to lead us in our pledge. Oh, there's Amy. Hi.
There's no Boy Scout here, so here I am. Could we all stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the Texas flag.
I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Wow. You all did really good on the Texas flag. I had trouble. I was looking for the words somewhere. I should mention Miss Amy Lecoq is with the Voter Awareness Council. Thank you for everything you do to help us get out the vote for our elections.
Thank you. Hope to see y'all next week in the meeting room.
Oh, that's right. When is that again, Amy?
It's Wednesday, next Wednesday, right before the township meeting at 4:30 at the Black Walnut Cafe. So come, have a little something to eat and drink, have a chance to chat with these 4 wonderful candidates, and then you can walk on over to the board meeting.
Thank you, Amy. And there is a card on everyone's seat with details on that event. So, and now I would like to introduce Mr. Andy Dubois with the Woodlands Villager, who will be our moderator.
Okay, we have 3 races. We have position 5, position 6, and position 7. Position 5 and position 6 incumbents, John McMullan with position 5 and Dr. Ann Snyder with position 6. They are running unopposed. So first we're going to start and give each one of them 2 minutes to introduce themselves and speak a little bit about their I guess, work on the board and in the community. So John, do you want to get up and start? Okay.
Sure. On the podium? Or?
Sure, you can come on up since they have taken the seats.
Thank you, Andy. I am John McMullan, and about to wrap up my 2nd term on the board, and I'm greatly looking forward to this next term. And so I think in these 2 minutes, let me give you a sense of the 4 things that I'm going to be focused on. First, the flood recovery. I mean, this has been an absolutely traumatic event for our community and for the entire region. I get this on a real and personal level. My mother flooded, my in-laws flooded, and it is something we are living with every day, and I get it. And you know, the Woodlands Township does not have the budget of a lot of other governments. We don't have the budget of Harris County or Montgomery County, and certainly not of the federal government. But I have a high degree of confidence that this board is going to do what we can, subject to the real budgetary limitations we have, to try to improve people's lives there. Second, for nearly 4 years now, I've been working on the Economic Development Committee that is led by Dr. Snyder, advancing the idea of a science museum for the Woodlands. And this idea is, our work is not done yet, but we have making slow and steady progress. And my sincere hope is that sometime in this 2-year term, that our board will have a vote as to whether or not this is a project we want to advance for the whole community. And I don't want to commit myself to it yet, but based on what I know today, I'm cautiously optimistic that this is going to be a fit for a community, and it's something that I am likely to push for. Third, I think it's important for the entire board to honestly and fairly and transparently evaluate whether or not it makes sense to become a city. And what we have done thus far is we've sent out an RFP for a number of consultants and or universities to try to answer some of the most basic questions our residents have. What would it cost to become a city? What would the benefits be of becoming a city? And I'm the second most tenured person on this board, and I can't answer those questions. Not because I'm disinterested, but because we don't have access to high quality information. And this board is committed to doing that, and I'm looking forward to that process. And what I can commit to each and every person in this room is, if in my own independent judgment it makes sense I believe it makes sense for the Woodlands to become a city, I'm going to vote to authorize the corporation election. If I don't, I'm not. I'm not going to be pressured or pushed in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to do what I think is right here. And finally, the fourth thing is, another thing the Economic Development Committee is looking at is a cultural arts facility that is not a science museum, an arts center. I think that proposal may be a little bit more difficult, but I can commit you guys I'm going to fairly evaluate that. And that work is ongoing as well. And so that's sort of how I see the next couple of years looking in terms of my priorities. And I just want to quickly add that it is an absolute honor to represent the Woodlands. We live in a special and wonderful place, and it's important that people recognize how blessed we are to live here. And I'm going to do my level best to continue representing the Woodlands this term, and I thank all of you guys for showing up. Thank you.
Thanks, John. We were a little lenient with John's time. He was very lenient with the public last night at the board meeting, allowing them to speak their piece. And as Dr. Snyder said, that's why we're here to listen to the members of the community and let them have their voice heard. So now we will hear from Dr. Snyder, and she will talk about what she's been doing on the board and in the community.
Thank you, Andy, and a very special thank you to the Chamber for hosting this and for the Voter Awareness Council for being a part. My name is Ann Snyder, and know so many of you in this room, and I just will complete my first term as of this November. And someone asked me, why would you want to do this, and why are you running again? We'll share with you, I looked at my notes a couple weeks ago to see if I was still where I was 2 years ago, and it's the very same. Several years ago, there appeared to be, from my perception, divisiveness in this community, and this is not what the Woodlands is. This is not what it was intended to be, nor was it the very inception of what we created. And that's why I ran 2 years ago. And that's why I continue my mission and was very thankful not to be opposed. My husband, 2 years ago, when I shared with him that I wanted to run, and I had one more thing to do that I'd like to do for this incredible community, and has embraced that, we raised our children here. I think I bring, and still bring, a very unique perspective in that all social economic, all faiths, all races, cultures, ethnicities, ages, that I've had the true privilege of working with. And the Woodlands has always welcomed all of those people. And I would like us, as a township board, to continue that important piece that makes us truly unique. As John mentioned, what the next several years look like, I too am working with Mr. McMullan regarding the cultural arts study, and feel that it's an added amenity that we as a community could embrace and would be important to us. At the same time, the devastation of Hurricane Harvey to our community takes precedent. I always look to see if I would personally write a check when spending the township funds, and I will share with you for what we have done as a community. community, to help our residents in the Woodlands, I would assume every one of us would personally have written that check. It's awful. It's awful. It's people's lives, and that's important. The other two things that have always been high on my priority is being fiscally responsible and letting us be good stewards of the taxpayers' funds, and that is a high priority with me. And the last, thank you, the last would say is safety. We have an incredible community that we want to continue, and it's a high priority with the township budget to be sure that we have not only a community that embraces everyone, but also that is a very solid and safe community. I thank you for all being here and to show your interest. This is what makes the Woodlands what it is. Thank you, Andy.
All right, we do have one contested race. That is position 7. Laura Fillault is the incumbent, and she's being challenged by Carol Stromatt. The way the forum is going to work is each one will get 2 minutes for an introduction, and then we will ask questions. Each candidate will get 90 seconds to respond to those questions, and then each candidate has one rebuttal card to use for a 30-second rebuttal. So we're going to start with the introductions, and Carol, you can start.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Dubois. Good morning, I'm Carol Stromatt, and I am a 20-year resident of the Woodlands. I am a professional businesswoman with my own company. The one thing that I want is community first. I always say God and community first. I want you to know that I am going to be here. I will be your listening ears and your communicator. As a volunteer, I've worked all over the community, worked a lot with Interfaith and Ann. I know a lot about the history of our wonderful community. I love this community, and I have been working with our local government for many years in both my village as well as the RDRC, so forth. We do have a diverse, I could have just dittoed what Ann said. We do have a diverse community, and that is something that I want to be sure that we maintain. We must take care of our flood victims. Most of you have probably been out there doing that. I certainly have, taking sheetrock off the wall, etc. This is something that we went into this race, and then suddenly there was Harvey. So things changed. We changed our priorities for that event, but we must remember that it doesn't go away just because we no longer have trash on the street. I want to listen and respect the views of our wonderful community, and I want to be a voice and a choice for you. I will definitely plan. I want to work with the board to be to collaborate, and I want us to make a decision on whatever is best for the community, and I want us to do that in an educated way. And last but not least, I definitely will be a good steward of your taxes. That is something, I want to live in a community that has great amenities, and we do. So I want to be sure that we do the best for our community with what we have, and that we have enough to do that.
Thank you. All right, Laura, you're up.
I'm up. Hi, I'm Laura Fillault. Just a little background on me. Life has changed since the last time that I was here with you guys. I now live in Alden Bridge, right next to Mitchell Intermediate. I'm working a couple jobs right now. I'm director of operations for a corporate branding company, and I'm also then helping the supplier of that company do their operations background stuff, and I'm trying to start a small business. This is not easy. I think this is exciting and terrifying at the same time, with a fellow Aggie to teach personal finance to young adults. So if you have any young adults that need personal finance training, budgeting and stuff, send them our way. I'm also working on a veterans organization. There's an organization called Combined Arms down in Houston, and I'm working with the guys there and a couple of Marines in our area to bring an extension up this way to help actively bring separating veterans to Montgomery County. And I'm going to be back to talk to you guys about how you can help. This is a great community to live in, and we want to bring veterans because they are civic-minded, they're leaders, and we want them in our community. So that's going to be part of what we're doing with that organization. Work in the re-election as well. And I've got 2 kids. Zachary is started at McCullough this year, and holy cow, that's a big school. And then Juliet started at Mitchell this year. So we're starting new schools. 30 seconds. So my top priorities are regional water mitigation plan as our county and our area continue to grow and develop. Want to make sure that the concrete we're pouring directs the water where it's supposed to go, where it should go. Regional transit plan, we still need to be paying attention to that because we're an urban area now. We're not rural county anymore. Incorporation, we probably will talk about budget, and then last but certainly not least is public safety. So, and stuff.
Okay, all right. All right, we'll be pretty strict on the 90 seconds now with the questions. And Mrs. Fillault, we'll start with you with the first question. Recently, George Mitchell's dream of an inclusive, accepting community, as well as the township's proclamation to support diversity, have been teetering due to certain actions and comments. What will you, as a township board member, strive to accomplish in order to ensure harmony among all residents and visitors in the Woodlands?
Sure. Okay, so let's just deal with the elephant in the room. Yes, I said some not nice things on Twitter, and if it offended you, I apologize sincerely. And I have been properly and repeatedly rebuked, so I apologize. As Ann mentioned before, we are, the community was designed to welcome all socioeconomic levels, all, just everybody. We have a really diverse community. We have, I think it's 26 different languages that are spoken here. We have all kinds of organizations that come in. I want to keep, this is my kid's hometown, and I want to keep it like it is. And so we will keep doing what we're doing. We will keep inviting people to come to public comment. I would love to see organizations, I would love to see nonprofit organizations come together and help the community to achieve the goals that they're looking to achieve. Whether it be 30 seconds, a diversity day, I believe that was mentioned last night. Help the township, help our organization do what improves the communication among people, and 15 seconds. And let's just keep doing what we're doing, but we got to keep talking. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Stromatt, same question to you.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Recently, George Mitchell's dream of an inclusive, accepting community, as well as the township's proclamation to support diversity, have been teetering due to certain actions and comments. What will you, as a township board member, strive to accomplish in order to ensure harmony among all residents and visitors in the Woodlands?
Well, I was a part of the movement that created the Woodlands Equality Coalition. I very definitely embrace everybody. I don't think that your nationality, the language you speak, where you came from, or whatever has anything to do with who you are. I know that there are wonderful people, no matter what. And what I will do is, what I've been doing is continue to work with all of the residents, no matter who they are, and to have forums within our community. I believe that we need a place where people can come together and talk about what's going on in the community and be informed about what's going on in the community, and to be kept up to date on where we are as a board within that. I drive for Interfaith. I work with the food bank to feed hungry people. The things that I do, I don't get in the car and say, you know, what's your faith or whatever. I just get in the car and I go and do what I want and love to do. So I'm going to keep serving this community. I'm on the board. I'm on my board for Indian Springs. I'm on the RDRC. I'm going to keep doing that.
All right, thank you. All right, Mrs. Stromatt, second question, you'll start. The Woodlands Township Board is proud of its low property tax rate. However, earlier this year, it opted not to follow the county's example and pass a 20% homestead exemption, which would have provided a little more tax relief to the residents. Do you agree or disagree with this decision, and why?
This is something that I think that we have to be constantly aware of, and that goes back to what does it take for us to continue the life that we love in this community. And I don't think that a flat-out 20% tax increase is, I would like to study that and do what works for our community. I'm a firm believer in working within our borders on a lot of different issues. That is a county decision. So all we can do is negotiate and so forth.
All right, thank you. All right, Mrs. Fillault?
Okay, so if you paid attention to the budget hearings this last time, so a 20% homestead exemption isn't, we already do an exemption for 65 plus and for disabled. So that already exists. What we learned in our budget hearings this last time I came prepared is that if we do a 20% homestead exemption, it works for a little bit and then it takes us, the brown is bad. It takes us down into we're losing money over time. We have sales tax revenue, hotel tax revenue, and property tax revenue. And these are the areas where the government gets money from. And sales tax, as y'all know, is relatively flat. Still, we're assuming a 1%, 1.5% sales tax. We're assuming, I want to say a 1% hotel tax, and that hotel tax actually is designated to areas that don't have to do with the township. It's a CBB kind of thing. And then property tax. And so we're looking ahead a year down the road, 5 years down the road. We're going to be challenged in our budget as we go. And if we're going to maintain that 23% or 23 cents on the 100, we're going to have to make wise choices. And the homestead exemption, the 20% homestead exemption, takes us down the red much faster. So we chose not to do that this time.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Fillault, we'll start with you on the third question. You mentioned sales tax. Many credit strong sales tax revenue for the low property tax rate in the Woodlands. However, that comes at a price for some Woodlands residents who believe their community is overrun by sporting events and festivals almost every weekend. What changes would you make to strike an acceptable balance regarding number of events and locations in the Woodlands?
I'm trying to make sales tax get in there, but okay. So it's really more events and how we manage those.
But those events do bring people to the Woodlands, which does drive the sales tax revenue.
There are a couple of events that we hold that address they bring in sales tax dollars. The marathon, I almost said the Marine Corps Marathon. The Ironman and CB&I believe, bring in a significant, for that event, amount of retail sales and hotel tax and that sort of thing. A lot of our programs, though, are local, 4th of July and these sorts of things. It's true, we need to strike a balance between the two, and I think that over what I've seen over the last year and almost two is the board is actively trying to find that right balance but it changes year to year, and it's not easy. It's like trying to pin Jello on a wall. How do we bring in these events and get the sales tax revenue that we like to have because it keeps our property taxes low, and at the same time not inconvenience the residents? This past, I think it was the Ironman, kept some people stuck in one of our, the Woodlands Resort. That's not great. So how do we adjust that and make sure that they take care of those things? There's not a great answer. It's basically, we're just gonna have to keep trying to find a good balance. We like the sales receipts, and we like to be free to roam around our area. So we're gonna keep trying. I don't know if there's gonna be an absolute ideal mix. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Stromatt?
The sales tax is something that helps us keep our taxes down on the homeowners. And we have been trying, I know. Each year, we do better with our events. Each year, we allow more people to get out of their homes at certain times. And we have great facilities for our guests. And we have traffic control. And I think that we're working in the right direction on that. I know that our commercial organizations, entities around the Woodlands pay at least 30% of our taxes. So we certainly don't want to do away with that. It's very critical that we have both. And so I would just say that we would keep working on that, and that we would, I think that we want these events. I think we just have to keep working on how we put them on and what we do to alleviate some of the problems that we run into when we have that.
Thank you. Mrs. Stromatt, next question is for you. In the 2016 election, a group of candidates ran for the township board under the mantra residents advocates, even though some may have done little representing Woodlands residents in the past. If elected, what would your responsibility be as an advocate for residents as well as businesses and other entities in the community?
Well, first of all, I'm a big advocate for residents, and I know that being a commercial real estate broker, we have to work with our wonderful companies in the Woodlands, or we wouldn't have the amenities that we have. I think that we would want to, pardon me. Would you repeat the question?
Sure.
Thank you.
If elected, what would your responsibility be as an advocate for residents as well as businesses and other entities in the community?
Great. So I think that I fairly well answered that. I would advocate for the rights and the interests of the residents first, community first, and I am an avid supporter of the commercial businesses that we have. I will support the businesses and the people who work within our Woodlands to make it the great place that it is.
Thank you. Mrs. Fillault?
Yes. Okay, so, advocate for residents and businesses. I have had the opportunity over the last almost 2 years now to help various people when they've called. I have met with everybody who has ever asked me to meet for coffee. I'm happy to help people call the sheriff's office to, there was a man who was camping out, he was camping out in our forest. And so he was taking things from someone's back porch. So, I was able to call the sheriff's office and get the deputies to go just that little bit further to find the guy and help him find a new place to live. Gosh, there's just, people that call me and ask me to explain the letters that they're getting, the covenant letters, and then taking them back to our covenant administration and saying, will you please send someone out and point to where there is this, whatever that we've told them is bad. And so I've had the opportunity to do that. I got to work with Mr. Stromatt during with the Indian Springs Board Association. He was trying to, and I thought it was a great idea, to try and bring a replica of the Liberty Bell to their 4th of July parade. And so when people have asked me for help, I have done my very best to help them. And I have put my phone number out there, email, everybody knows that they can reach out to me. I will continue to do that. So, thank you.
All right, Mrs. Fillault, next question.
That's right.
It has been said that the Township Board is nothing more than a glorified homeowners association with little to no power. However, angry and sometimes defeated residents have challenged the board to step up and defend their properties from such issues as flooding and commercial encroachment. What will you do as a board member to not only ensure residents' concerns are heard, but that there is tangible action to protect residential homes and quality of life?
Okay, so it's true that we're a special purpose tax district, right? So we deal with mostly with your property taxes and then some policies as far as the township's concerned. What I have learned over the last couple of years is that you catch more flies with honey. So opening up lines of communication to all the different organizations, whether it be the MUDs, the county, anybody that has the ability to affect things that we can't, Sheriff's Office. If we can maintain those relationships, have good communication, then we can, I've lost my train of thought. Amy, help me out.
It's all right. So how are you going to ensure that residents' voices are not only heard, or concerns are not only heard, but also there's tangible action by the board?
We're going to keep doing what we've been doing, right? So like the Drainage Task Force, I thought is a fantastic way to show how we're doing this. We have got we've got the MUDs involved, we've got the flood control involved. These are ways that with the township board can hear the residents. Last night was a perfect example. We're getting the OEM, Darren from the Montgomery County OEM talked about how our Creekside folks can get FEMA help, and the best way to do that. That's how we can keep advocating for our residents, is keep pulling people in, asking them questions that are in positions to affect change that we aren't in the position to do.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
No, that's all right. Mrs. Stromatt, same question to you.
Great. First of all, I think that we make sure our residents are heard and informed. We need to keep them in the loop, and we can do that with city halls. We can do that with town halls, not city halls, excuse me, forums and town halls. And we have done that before. We kind of dropped that out, but I think we could bring that back. And we have, of course, the venue before the board meetings where people can actually come in and tell us, you know, what's on their minds, what they're thinking about. I would encourage residents to do more of that, because if you've been to the board meetings, you know that they don't often show up. I think that tangible actions are what we do every day in our community. And I think that, for instance, with Spring Creek, which is the only creek that floods in the Woodlands directly, will be well served to start the negotiation, collaboration with the powers that be around us, because that covers a lot of territory. And in the past, we have, for one thing, we don't have a flood control district. We can collaborate and possibly get that done. It will take time and practice. However, I think that's something we can do.
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Stromatt, you have 90 more seconds for the next question. What are the pros and/or cons of incorporation, and what do you believe needs to happen before the Woodlands incorporates?
Great.
Well, first of all, I am not going to make a definite decision on whether we incorporate or not until I get results from the various studies that we are going to be having. As I think JJ mentioned before, someone mentioned before, we have it was John. We have an RFP out right now. We're going to be getting information from numerous organizations to tell us whether or not we could do that. And there are various ways, by the way, that we can do that. And then not only whether we can do it, which is going to be the most practical. We all know that, you know, right now, we're not in charge of roads. We just clean them up. However, if we became a city, we would have to do that. So there are a lot of things that we will have to consider. And what I promise I will do is I will keep the residents in our community informed, in the loop, and I will take those concerns to the board, and I will collaborate with the current board members to make sure that we do what is best for our residents and for our community, because we know that George Mitchell had a wonderful vision for this community, and we need to maintain that and sustain what we already have and then grow on that.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Fillault, same question to you. What are the pros and or cons of incorporation, and what do you believe needs to happen before the Woodlands incorporates?
Okay, so some of the pros were mentioned. Roads, we would actually have control over our roads and the points around it. For example, at some point there was an idea of breaking branch crossing all the way through to 1488 and that sort of thing. We don't have a say on that right now. It just would happen. We'd have a direct seat at the table, speaking of roads, and I learned something last night. We'd have a direct seat at the table with HGAC when they're doing their planning. The reason why there's no flyover at Research Forest is because Shenandoah, who is a city, said no. And so there's no flyover there. We don't have that opportunity. What I learned last night is HGAC also deals some with the flood mitigation plans. We still don't have a seat at that table, so we still will just have to be sitting on the sidelines and then needling our representatives who do have that seat to get them to advocate for us as well. Another thing that we're learning is that because we're not a city, FEMA money does not come to us. FEMA money goes to the county, and then the counties disperse it. So if we were a city, we would actually be a government entity and could receive those funds directly and then hand them out directly, even across county lines. One of the cons that everybody's aware of is there's a potential increase in taxes. What I really like is that the board is setting aside actual cash so that it will, in the future, mitigate some of those increases potentially. And we are not anywhere close. I'm interested to see in the study.
Okay, thank you.
That's me.
Okay, yes, it is you, and I'm going to jump over because you alluded to it, but I'm going to jump to another question, Mrs. Fillault.
Okay.
You can start. Even though the Woodlands Township pretty much has no financial responsibility or authority over roads and water, why and how should the board be involved in Montgomery County's mobility and water battles?
Yeah, absolutely. We need a seat at the table. We need to be a part of the conversation that the county's having as far as the transit plan all throughout the county. My biggest concern is that we're going to end up being a pass-through city, and I don't want that. I want us to be a place where people come, not where people drive through. And so I want to make sure that we are doing what we can to and have that seat at the table to, even if we have to kind of push our way in, to be able to talk about that. Same thing with the water mitigation. I would like to see a regional water mitigation and management task force created, because water doesn't have county boundaries. And so let's look at what's coming up from the northwest down our way, not just Spring Creek, but we've also got Lake Creek, we've got the San Jacinto River, and it all comes in and hits the southeast part of the county over in Porter and Kingwood. But we need to find a way to have a seat at the table to address these issues for our residents. And it's especially important because we cross those county lines. That it poses a particular challenge for us because we are having to make sure that Mr. Cagle, who is the Precinct 4 Commissioner for Harris County, is available to talk to us, and he has been sometimes, and also the Harris County Flood Control District, to make sure that they're listening to us and that we're having, that they're willing to do what we need done for our Creekside residents. So.
All right, thank you. All right, Mrs. Stromatt, same question. Even though the Woodlands Township pretty much has no financial responsibility or authority over roads and water, why and how should the board be involved in Montgomery County's mobility and water battles?
Thank you. Well, I believe that what we do have is we have the power to go out and negotiate with the communities around us. We have the power to communicate with the 3 commissioners who we work with on a regular basis. I believe that if we can sit down as with a seat at the table and talk with these people, which we actually have, all we have to do is, call a meeting. We do not have the authority over them, nor do we have the budget over these, over water and over roads. However, we do have the ability to sit down with them at the table, which we've done many times. And for instance, up in the southeast area where Willow Creek comes in, you've got a problem there because the county has allowed people to build there and to push the dirt into the creeks. So, you could sit down with them and say, let's remediate this. Let's take this problem away. And that's Harris County on one side and the Montgomery County on the other side. So we do have a way to do that. Right now, we don't have a seat at the table as a city or whatever, but we can deal with it
Okay.
daily.
All right. Mrs. Stromatt, next question for you. As Mr. McMullan mentioned earlier, the Woodlands has been moving forward with phases of a study on a business model for a cultural arts center as well as a science museum. What should be included in a cultural arts center, and how should construction and operations of such facilities be funded?
First of all, we have to complete our study. We do not have a museum to put anything in at this time, and the residents are going to be the deciding factor in that. I believe that I'm all for art. I happen to be an artist, and I would love to see us have a place here in the Woodlands where the artists can stay here with their art instead of going, to other communities around us. And who would pay for it? Well, there are a lot of people in this community who want that sort of thing, and they would pay for it, as well as whatever the community chooses when they vote whether or not they want a culture and art center. And I would love to see the science center for our kids. Kids are, a great passion for me, and I know that we have the robotic lab, and I think that's wonderful. We need to continue doing those things and to have that in our community. I would love to see it, and how it is financed and whether or not it's feasible and at what time it's feasible. That is the question, and that is what the board and the residents have to decide together. So I really encourage the people who want an art and science place to work with that. We have other issues like that that we're working on.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Fillault, same question to you.
I think I got it.
Okay.
So I wanted a museum, like history museum, but I didn't get my wish. So I really wanted it to be at the home center, home finder center, because everybody's been there, right? And so we'd have the table and just the history of the Woodlands. From Lake Jackson, we have a museum like that, and it's fun to go to because you get to teach the kids each year, the history of our community. So Cultural and Performing Arts Center, I know that there's a huge demand for an indoor stage. Sugar Land has something like this. It's the Smart Financial Center, and it does very well. It's across from their university, so I think the university uses it well, which is fantastic. So indoor stage, the Natural Museum of Science, again, Sugar Land has something like that in that same area next to, I think it's the University of Houston Extension out that way. And so I have kids and they love to go to that kind of stuff. And if it's something that the community wants, let's figure out a way to do it. as far as how to fund it, grants are something that we should pursue. Private donations, obviously. Partnerships with universities. I'm gonna pick on Amos Lone Star College could, you know, if they're gonna use the facilities as well for their theater program or performing arts programs, then, you know, we could partner with them and kind of share some of that spending. Bonding, I would be willing to listen to, but there would have to be strict policy around if it doesn't work.
All right, thank you. Okay, Ms. Fillault, next question for
That's
you.
right.
All right, what do you consider the most overfunded responsibility in the township budget, and how would you propose cutting those costs?
That's a really hard question, because I think that we do a tremendous job managing our budget. We've taken it to, I won't call it bare bones, but we provide very high quality services for the least amount of cost that we find fiscally responsible. I'm gonna take some of my time to think about it, because honestly, I can't think of anything that we're doing that I find egregious in our spending. When Parks and Recs are good, transportation's good, Covenant administration is doing well, so HR is okay. Afraid I don't have a really good answer for that. I find that we're managing our budget as best we can. If you want to catch me afterwards and tell me where I'm wrong, I'm happy to hear it, because I can't think of anything right now. So there you go.
All right, thank you. All right, Mrs. Stromatt, same question to you. What do you consider the most overfunded responsibility in the township budget, and how would you propose cutting the costs?
I can't think of a one that is overfunded. I have here the list of, you know, what we provide, the services we provide, and the budget, but I can't think of anything that we have overfunded. I can think of some things I would like to fund more, but not overfunded. You know, I'd like to see us do a better job of cleaning up our roads and trimming our trees. It's hard to see around a lot of corners and that sort of thing, but I don't know of a budget item that's overfunded.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Congratulations, Dr. Snyder. You guys are doing a perfect job, apparently.
I won't say perfect, but the best we can.
Well, since we're doing so well on the budget here, next question, Mrs. Stromatt. What do you consider the most underfunded responsibility, either included or not included in the budget, and what would you do to ensure adequate funding is available?
Underfunded. Well, I'm not sure that the fact that the trees are not trimmed or the bushes are not trimmed is underfunded. What I would like to see is I would like to see remain in the budget is the money that was allocated for determining if we become a city or not. But aside from that.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Fillault.
Okay, so it's kind of the same answer. It's a hard thing to, because I think that we're providing high quality services for as reasonable a tax rate as we can to keep those services high and to provide it. And this is going to sound like pandering, and I get it. One area that I am concerned about as we go forward is our fire department is going through their ISO reevaluation. We like having an ISO 1 because it helps our insurance, our home insurance. And it also, we have one of the top fire departments in the nation. My concern is we had to turn down 2 of their requests at this last budget meeting. One was for drivers. Right now our battalion chiefs drive and punch in things on their laptop as they're trying to coordinate if there's a big emergency. I would prefer if they had a firefighter driver so that the battalion chief can focus in on his job. We didn't get to do that. And then I think based on our growth, it would behoove the community to have a second man station either at 4 or 5, which is on the west side of our community, just to improve coverage in that area. And we had to say no on that. So those are things that I'll be looking towards. And that's the one that I think that we're having a little difficulty with. The rest of them we'll have to see.
All right, Mrs. Fillault, next question to you.
Sorry, I forget.
No, that's fine. What do you believe is an elected official's responsibility when using social media in terms of communication, information, and professionalism?
Right, so, okay, we addressed that a little bit, but I'll talk about it again. There's a time on my, so this is how I handle it, and I evidently have not handled it well on Twitter. On my township Facebook page, I tried, it's township information. On my personal Facebook page, it's things that I believe and share. On my Twitter account, that started back in 2011, and I didn't create an official township Twitter account. So I will not be using the salty language going forward, because I understand that that is something that is affecting people negatively. But it's also, there's gotta be, we each need our own private ability to discuss issues without having it to be, I'm always a township director. If that's the way we wanna operate, it's the same when you're a business. If you're a business owner and you say something negative on your personal time, there are fuzzy lines. Going forward, I will be professional and represent the Woodlands well at all times, and keep my private thoughts to myself.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Stromatt, same question to you.
Well, I believe that personally, I need, as a director, I need to show up and I need to serve our community with grace and dignity at all times. And when I don't, you know, I know you, I can depend on you to call me on it. And I'm very well known in the community. I've been here a long time, and I believe that that you will call me on it if I don't. And one of the ironies that I wanted to point out about back to the budget item was that I was speaking to the firefighters just a few days after the flood, and asked about the high water vehicle, and it had arrived the day after all the water was gone. So I'm thrilled that we are taking care of their needs, maybe just a little bit late, and like it was referred to in the budget, those are things that are very important. So I would say definitely, as your representative, I want to represent you well, and I want to show up for you whenever you need me and whenever it is necessary for me to be here.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Mrs. Stromatt, next question for you. To start, while this is supposed to be a nonpartisan race, each one of you identifies with a specific political party. What is the most important virtue of your party's platform that you would instill on the board if elected?
First of all, this is a nonpartisan position, and I would definitely, I don't care what your party is, who you serve, you know, I will work for you. I don't go driving seniors and say, you know, before you get in my car, I want to know what your political views are. When I go and take food to people or whatever, I don't ask them, are you, you know, like when I was out working during the flood, I didn't say, okay, is this a libertarian, a green, a Democrat, a Republican homeowner? I will show up for every one of you, and what your party is has nothing to do with it. You are my residents. You are my hometown neighbors and friends. So that will have nothing to do with what I believe. Like I say, you know, God and community first. However, this is nonpartisan, and that's the way I'll remain.
All right, Mrs. Fillault.
Okay, so I tend to be conservative, and one of the tenets of that is fiscal conservative, being fiscally conservative, which in our community is one of the most important things, because the thing that we work on most are budgets. And so being fiscally conservative is something I do in my personal life, and try to make sure that we do the same thing in the township budget. Ann had talked about, would you write a personal check for it? One thing that I have seen in our township staff is they tend to treat the budget the same way as if this was their own company, would they run it the same way? So being fiscally conservative is something that I have done. It's on record. You can go check my voting record as far as the decisions we've made when we spend money. And so fiscal conservancy.
All right, thank you. All right, Mrs. Fillault.
I'm going to forget every time, so.
That's all right. Are you satisfied with law enforcement protection in the Woodlands? And what, if anything, would you change with the contracts for service?
We have a very safe community. And so, yes, I think that Sheriff Gage did a great job. I think that Sheriff Henderson is doing a great job. I won't say it's new. We're what, 8 months into Sheriff Henderson's tenure. I've been satisfied with what we've seen. I'm interested, he has made some tweaks to the contract. I'm interested to see how this is going to play out. I know that they're still doing their community policing. They're doing all the things that they were doing before. They may be restructuring a little bit, but for the most part, I think that businesses are safe. I think that our residents are safe, and it will continue to keep watch over that, because that's part of our responsibility. I'm going to do a plug here for a second. One of the biggest frustrations that I have when our Sheriff's Office comes and gives us our quarterly update is the biggest number that's on that sheet are things being stolen out of cars. Because our residents are parking in their driveways with their cars unlocked, leaving stuff in cars, or at the shopping centers or whatever, and it's inviting criminals in. Take your stuff out of your car when you park. Let's not entice bad guys to come rob us and our neighbors. Let's make it so that it's not even worth their time, because there's nothing to get. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Stromatt?
I believe that we have a great group of sheriff's deputies, et cetera, who are, and the constables, who are working in our, pardon me, in our community to make us safe and keep us safe. I do enjoy their presentations that they do in our village association, and they always report to us, as previously stated, that we are not real good at, well, I'll never forget an ad someone did that said, don't encourage a good boy to go bad. Well, if you're leaving things in your car, you're encouraging people to take it out. I do think that the presence of the horses, a lot of people talk about that. I think that that is a deterrent. On the other hand, I think that there might be other deterrents that we could do better. Again, I think the trimming of the bushes and that sort of thing is a deterrent to safety, and one that we could do a little better. I understand, I mentioned that somewhere else, and they said, well, the commissioner before this just took out a weed eater and he trimmed the trees from a truck bed as he went down the street, and that's why you had a lot less trees hanging over. This one doesn't believe that that's what needs to be done. He doesn't do it like that.
All right,
so.
thanks. Okay, Mrs. Stromatt, with residential property pretty much built out in the Woodlands and only around 15 to 20% still left for commercial growth, what should the township board do, if anything, to support businesses and development in the Woodlands?
Well, I am a big proponent of our businesses and our development, and I think what we need to do there is stay within the covenants and make sure that what we do in the future is within that those covenants, because as you said, we only have the development has what's left of our property, pretty much, with the exception of Creekside in residential. So I believe that what we need to do is work together with our development company and be a voice in that particular area of what we would like to see and what we would not like to see. However, again, I think I've mentioned that they pay a large amount of our taxes and keep our taxes lower for us. So I believe that we need to support them and be very vigilant. We need to go to them and let them know what we want, how we want it, and negotiate with them. In the past, the developer has always been a good partner with us. I think that we've had a few more challenges recently, and I think, again, we just need to be the squeaky wheel and keep working on that.
All right, thank you.
Because that is,
All right. Mrs. Fillault?
Do me the question again, because I want to make
Sure.
sure I answered it
With
right.
residential property pretty much built out in the Woodlands and only around 15 to 20% still left for commercial growth, what should the township board do, if anything, to support business and development in the Woodlands?
Okay, so, really, and I said this a couple years ago, the township board's job, I see, is to provide a framework to allow businesses to have the opportunity to be the best that they can be. Provide public safety. No one wants to have a business here or live here or work here if it's not safe. Make it a desirable place to come. And that I mean keeping the pathways nice, keeping the parks and all the trees and maintained, streetscapes maintained. Make it look like we know it to be. Put our best foot forward as a township to give people a desire to want to come up this way. Another thing that we continue to do is to help keep taxes low. Commercial property doesn't have a cap. And so the best thing we can do to support our businesses, because a lot of you own or lease buildings, is to try and keep our taxes as low as possible. One thing that has been brought up recently in the board meetings has been Amazon. Amazon is getting a lot of our retail tax money. And it's about 50%, I want to say, that maybe, don't totally quote me, and trying to figure out how to bring those tax dollars that they're buying, people are buying in here, back to us to support our area.
All right, thank you. Okay, last question, and then we'll give you all closing statements, okay?
Oh, that's right, please.
All right, Mrs. Fillault, what will be the most impressive trait residents will remember about your service on the township board and why?
Most impressive trait. That's a really hard question, because I don't really see myself that way. Fiscally responsible and open to meeting and helping residents, just like I've been doing. I'll keep doing the same thing I've been doing. I guess if I had one thing that when I walk away from this, people would say, I called her, she met with me, she heard me, she helped me if she could, and I appreciated that. So.
Okay, all right, thanks. Mrs. Stromatt?
Well, I wish you good luck with stopping Amazon. I hope that what people will remember about me when I am a director is that I am caring, I am thoughtful, I'm strategic. I have been a strategic planner for many years. I will look at something, I will take the vision, and I will help and collaborate with the directors to take that vision to fruition by plugging in whatever plans are needed to make that decision in a very well thought out manner. And I am a good steward of your taxes. I do support that. And I am fiscally responsible every day of my life, and I will bring that to this community. Thank you.
All right, each of you will have 2 minutes closing, and then we'll let Stuart close it out. Mrs. Stromatt, we'll start with you.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I am for the needs of our community first. George Mitchell's vision of diversity is the cornerstone of our township's economic prosperity. I will continue to uphold that. We must focus on our local issues and not be distracted by national issues brought to our doorstep. We want to assist our residents who have been impacted by the recurrent flooding and the Harvey recovery. Also, of course, that was an unprecedented rain event. Hopefully, we will never have 40 to 50 inches of rain in 3 days again. However, we want to be prepared for that. I want to plan not just for incorporation, but for making sure that we are never annexed by Houston, Texas. I came here from Houston, Texas, concrete and asphalt. I am an East Texas girl, and I love these trees. So I'm going to do whatever I can, but in the most well thought out way I possibly can, in collaboration with the other board members that are serving you. And last but not least, moving toward community enhancement for our seniors and our children, our green initiatives, our art facilities and science museum, toward taking the next step to ensure the sustainability of this community, my hometown. Thank you. And by the way, I am running for the Woodlands Township Director, position 7, and I would love to have your vote and work for you. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Dio.
Okay, so I'm just going to recap the priorities that I would have going forward. Regional water plan, mitigation and management. We need to get on board and get people, we need to bring that organization together. It doesn't exist right now, and it should, because we're not a rural county anymore. We're an urban area. We're an urban county. We don't like to talk about ourselves that way, but as they're developing Camp Straight, that's going to affect us. As they're developing on East County, that has a potential to affect us. Some in positive ways, economic development wise, but also in our water mitigation issues in potentially negative ways. Transit plan, same thing. My kids will call this their hometown when they ask. People ask, where are you from? The Woodlands. Will be their response, and I want that to still mean something. A lot of you have raised children here and they've had that opportunity to say those things. Again, I want to, with the transportation issues, want to avoid us being becoming a pass-through city. This is a place where I want people to still come and stay. Incorporation, we're just going to keep working towards it. There are some good things, there are some challenges, there are some cons, but let's understand it. As long as we keep going forward and understanding it, we're going to be more educated as a populace, and I think the board will make until we are ready to explain it to you, I can pretty much, I won't speak for the whole board, I'll speak for myself. I won't bring anything that I can't fully explain to you. Budget, it's going to be a challenge. 2019, we're taking on money that the development company has been paying. And so our budget is going to have to be a little more finely looked at. And then public safety is always kind of the unspoken issue for residents. So we'll continue working towards that. Laura Fio, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you to the incumbents running and the challenger. All 4 of you have served this community very well in different capacities through the year. It's not always easy to be in the public's eye. I appreciate that, and I'm sure our residents do as well. Thank you again for running for office and serving the community. I'm going to turn it over to Stuart so he can close out the meeting.
Thanks, Andy. First of all, I want to thank Andy for moderating this forum. I also want to thank Mrs. Fillault, Mrs. Stromatt, Dr. Snyder, and Mr. McMullan. Thank you for what you do, because as you all know, they do this because they care, they volunteer, and they give their time to make your community better. And we can't thank you enough for doing that. So thank you for what you do. Now, I've cautioned JJ about this because it's always dangerous to give a lawyer a podium and an audience, but I'll be very brief. I want to tell you a couple of things. I've got 3 things I want to talk about. First of all, I came here in 1973. My father came to work for George Mitchell for a company called Mitchell Development because the Woodlands didn't exist yet. It was trees and woods and swamps and deer and raccoons. And so I've seen this community grow literally from the forest. And it's such a pleasure and such an honor to be here as an adult. In 1974, they sent me out in the woods to save trees that had been damaged by bulldozers. 1975, I started working at the Swim Athletic Center as a lifeguard when this body looked good in a swimsuit. So I've seen this community from the ground up, and it's such an honor and a pleasure to be here as an adult and be part of the business community. And I want to commend JJ and the Chamber and Lupe for what you do for this community. I have the pleasure of being Vice President of Government Affairs for the Chamber, and the Business Advocacy Council, which is sponsoring this event, and the Transportation Education Council are 2 of the organizations, the groups that I get to work with. And I would encourage all of you, and you care because you're here, but I would encourage you to get involved in other ways. Come to the Business Advocacy Council meetings on the 3rd Friday of every month in this room at 8 o'clock. We do some really neat things. We are going on a field trip to the dam to see the San Jacinto River Authority. And it's a little bit topical because we had an issue with flooding. So come on, you get to see it from the inside and hear the other side of that story. Transportation Education Council, same thing. We get to talk about transportation issues. We've been on a field trip to Commissioner Nowak's office to see the big board and the signs and the things that most of us, I mean, I've been in this community for 44 years and I had no idea that stuff was going on there. So it's an opportunity. I would encourage you to get involved. And lastly, I want to thank the Voter Awareness Council for being here. Voter Awareness Council is doing its role to try and encourage people to get involved in the community. And again, you don't need the reminder to do that because you are involved in the community. You're here. That's an indication you're involved in the community. But get your neighbors involved. Get your church members involved. Get your schools involved, because this is, above all, a community we can all be proud of because of the hard work that all of you do. And we just need to continue the efforts that started this great place. And I'll close with this. The one thing that I find interesting about everybody that I talk to, the first thing they say is how long they've been here. Where else are you going to go where people, that's the first thing they tell you is how long they've been here. And that's an indication of how proud people are of this community. And we just need to keep that up. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being here. And let's go have a great weekend.